Imagine pulling into your own driveway, only to find a stranger's car sitting inside your garage, like they owned the place. Now imagine that stranger is the president of your homeowners association, someone who already treats you like you don't belong in the neighborhood. For Marcus, a hard-working father who had saved for years to buy his dream home, this was the final straw. What started as a small act of arrogance soon exploded into a shocking confrontation, one that exposed layers of entitlement, unchecked power, and the unexpected twist of justice that no one saw coming. Marcus had always dreamed of moving his family into a quiet suburban neighborhood, a place where kids could ride their bikes safely and where neighbors waved at each other across neatly trimmed lawns. After years of working double shifts as a paramedic, he finally managed to purchase a modest but beautiful house in a gated community. At first, everything seemed perfect. His wife decorated the porch with flowers, the children loved the nearby park, and he took pride in keeping the property well maintained. But soon, chilly stares from a few residents became hard to ignore. The most notable came from Linda, known locally as a Karen, who just happened to be the president of the HOA. She had a reputation for micromanaging everything, from grass length to the color of mailboxes. The scrutiny started small. A warning letter about leaving recycling bins out an hour too long. A passive-aggressive note on the door about parking a truck too close to the curb. Marcus brushed it off, determined not to let pettiness ruin his new life. But over time, it became clear Linda treated him differently. She nitpicked his property more than anyone else's, while overlooking glaring violations from her friends in the HOA. He swallowed his frustration, hoping things would eventually settle down. That belief shattered one Saturday morning, when the garage door lifted, and there sat Linda's SUV in the very spot where his car should have been. At first, he thought it must be some mistake. But the note under his windshield left no doubt. She had taken the space on purpose. The note was written in neat cursive, the kind of handwriting that pretends to be polite but carries venom beneath the surface. It read, "Temporary use of garage. HOA business requires flexibility. Please be understanding." Marcus froze. The garage wasn't a public lot. It was private property. How could anyone, least of all the HOA president, think they had the right to claim it? Confused and fuming, he asked around the neighborhood. Some residents shrugged nervously, avoiding eye contact. Others whispered that Linda often acted as though community rules didn't apply to her. Clearly, this wasn't about HOA business. It was about power. For days, her SUV remained in the garage. Each evening, Marcus returned from long shifts, only to find himself parking outside while her vehicle sat comfortably in the space he had paid for. His children asked why they couldn't play basketball in the driveway anymore. His wife urged him to speak up. When he finally confronted Linda, her response dripped with entitlement. She waved away the concern, claiming the HOA had rights to community resources. Marcus reminded her the garage was not community property. It was deeded to his home. She smirked, hinting that if he made trouble, she could find violations that might cost his family in fines. The intimidation stung. In neighborhoods like this, being too quiet meant getting ignored, too firm, and you risked being labeled difficult. But one morning, staring at her SUV blocking the garage yet again, he decided something had to change. Reviewing his deed and consulting the bylaws, he realized Linda was dead wrong. The garage was his private property. He had every right to secure it, so Marcus called a locksmith. Within hours, the garage code and locks were changed. That night, when Linda came to retrieve her SUV, she found it trapped inside. Sitting calmly on the porch, Marcus simply nodded as she realized she was no longer the one holding power. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Curtains twitched, blinds shifted. Some shocked, others secretly thrilled that someone had finally stood up to her. Linda stormed up the driveway, demanding her vehicle be released immediately. Her voice shook with rage, but beneath it was panic. Her perfect image of control was crumbling in public. The homeowner remained calm. He explained her car was on his private property, and he had secured his garage just as any homeowner could. She screamed that she would call the police. Marcus welcomed it. For once, the balance of power had shifted, not through anger, but through knowledge of his rights. When officers arrived, Linda tried to spin the story, claiming her car was being held hostage. But the deed documents told a different story. The garage was his and she had trespassed. Though cautious at first, the officers sided with Marcus. Linda was warned she could face charges if she repeated the stunt. For the first time, her smugness cracked. The HOA president who lorded over the neighborhood was now the one being escorted away, humiliated in front of the very residents she once intimidated. And Marcus. He felt both vindicated and heavy-hearted. Because while justice had been served, it had taken courage, documentation, and public confrontation just to assert a right that should have been respected all along. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. Neighbors who had once stayed silent began approaching to apologize for not speaking up sooner. Some admitted they'd been afraid of Linda's authority, while others confessed they didn't want to get dragged into drama. But now, with her power broken, people felt freer to acknowledge the truth. The HOA board held an emergency meeting, and Linda was pressured to step down as president. The same residents who once whispered behind closed doors now voted her out publicly. A new board was formed, promising fairness and transparency. For Marcus and his family, the victory was bittersweet. Yes, they had reclaimed their dignity and the right to enjoy their home without harassment. But the experience also revealed a deeper reality, that entitlement and misuse of authority often disguise themselves as rules, policies, or community standards. Injustice doesn't always arrive shouting. Sometimes it comes dressed in a suit, hiding behind bureaucracy. Still, his quiet act of resistance sent a powerful message. Knowledge, patience, and courage had dismantled arrogance, even when the odds seemed stacked against him. As Marcus parked his car back inside his garage, he reflected on the lesson his children would carry. Never let anyone convince you that you don't belong in the space you've earned. And for the rest of us, the story leaves a haunting question. How many times has silence allowed entitlement to flourish unchecked in our own neighborhoods, workplaces, and lives? Because sometimes the greatest act of resistance is simply refusing to give away what is rightfully yours.